Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Cluster Puck Podcast, part of the MHRT Network here at Center Ice. I am Nick. Beside me here, as always, is Brit. How are you doing, Brit?
I am good. How are you doing?
I am also doing very well. Okay, so got a few things that we're gonna touch up on this week in this week's episode. But before we go ahead and jump into that, don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow the MHRT Network so you can get notified when shows like the Cluster Puck podcast go live. One of these days, I'm gonna flub up that word, and it's gonna not look good live.
Oh, one letter to it wrong.
it's a one letter off type deal, and I get close every time.
We've talked about it since the first episode, so honestly, it's impressive that it hasn't happened yet. That's why we make you say the intro.
I had one that I got extremely close on, but so far the record does remain
I'm not even allowed to do the intro at this point. I don't think.
Anyways, you can follow the MHRT Network on the various social media platforms that they provide. Just look up MHRT Network on the various social media platforms. If you want to follow us specifically, you can follow us at Cluster Puck Avs on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads, or on Facebook at the Cluster Puck Podcast. Okay. So let's kind of jump through the last three games that we had, and then it's gonna be a bit kind of funky for our look ahead, just because we have a kind of a fun surprise announcement that for next week's episode is gonna be a lot of fun. So let's talk about the three games that we had, Britt. So 2-1, and even then that one kind of was a weird one. You know what I mean? So Let's talk about the Blue Jackets one first. To be completely honest, a 6-1 win, you let the first one in, and then it's you the rest of the way. I don't have a ton maybe to say about that.
It was definitely a lot harder of a win than it should have been, I feel like. I don't know. It just seemed like they're really, really bad. But or no, I don't know why I'm thinking Blues right now. I got Blues on the mind. Okay, so yeah, the Blue Jackets are really, 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 really bad. They're very bad.
Add a few more realies in there.
Yeah, man, and it just it sucks because I really like Merzlikins and I love Johnny and I love Fantilli too. I'm not even sure what's going on with him. Was he have a surgery? Because I haven't heard his name in a long time.
Yeah, he's kind of been under the radar. If he hadn't, let's see if he even played. I don't know
They
if he did.
Suck from top to bottom, and that team is just kind of I don't even know what's the hope for that team. I don't know. They make me sad because I feel like there's no gimmies, and they're not even interesting enough in their despair to be at on anybody's radar. Just really nobody cares. You know what I mean? I don't know. I feel kind of bad for them, but we did what we were supposed to do and kick the crap out of them.
Exactly. Yep. And that was kind of what we said last week, is this is one game where it should be you put your foot on the gas and do not let go. Well, they kind of kept their foot on the gas the entire time. It was a rocky start. I will admit that, the start, and that just seems to be the Avalanche MO. And this one, I don't blame, Georgiev for the one goal. That was kind of an everyone decided to drop the ball type goal.
We started the game and I texted my dad and I said, "Here we freaking go." Yeah. And then I said the exact same thing the next day. I swear to God.
Yeah.
The first 4 minutes that we eliminated it from every game, I don't know if we would have ever lost a game. If you took away the goals scored against us in the first 5 minutes, I don't know if we would have lost a game yet. It blows my mind. It blows my mind.
I have no idea. But at least for this one, 4.5 minutes in, this odd goal, I guess. I don't know if it should be an odd or it's just one of those things from Severson that the goal just is made. But I kind of that one should have been easily stopped.
They sucked so hard that he couldn't have even imagined a whiff and then a flub like that. It's not even something that he can comprehend as an NHL player for that puck to be coming to him from also NHL players like that.
Exactly.
I mean, so hard. It was
it's one of those where you're like, okay, but it's like, I still feel like it's 0-0 because no one really made the puck go in. So-
Right. Well, and that's what I tell people is like, people always say like send the goalie down to the AHL, but like it is demoralizing sometimes to play in lower levels because you're so used, your body is so in tune to timing and expectations, and stuff like that is almost harder for goalies to stop when it's so bad. So I don't know. It was
Exactly.
such a weird game. Is that kind of interesting? That's where we sort of started fumbling around with lines. And this is the game where we put Rantanen and Middlestat out and they scored on the first shift together? Was it this game? Like,
was that what that was? I don't remember if this one was it or not.
I think it was that one. We have been traveling and in
that was you're right, because Lehkonen and Drouin had that Makar goal that that tied it up in the first period. So yeah, it was they kind of shuffled around these lines a little bit, and it was
Rantanen, Drouin, and Middlestat. Is that the line that went out and scored immediately?
I think
Drouin is basically
that was one that scored in the second period, but I know that's kind of the fun thing, and we're Drouin here in a second, but yeah, so Middlestat was out there with Rantanen and Nichushkin, at least on the one shift that Nichushkin had the goal in the third period, but I want to say they shuffled them even during that Rantanen goal in the second.
And I like but I would like to keep Lehkonen and Val separate from each other, and I kind of feel like even though it worked, I don't know. I just feel like they're such like garbage dudes. Same with Drouin and Middlestat. I think they pass a little too much to keep. But like honestly, at this point, you've got Mac on the first line, and we all fluid from there. Like it's
pretty much.
Nothing feels that bad, or that scary. You know, it's pretty
exactly.
Cool. I really like it.
Well, and once Cale Makar tied the game up, which it was a very beautiful shot from him. You kind of are you were just like the game was kind of in the bag because they finally got stuff clicking together. And in the second period, it was all Avs. Third period, it was even more all Avs. So I ultimately, like I said, it was a rocky start. It was kind of one of those, you have to crank your motor to get it running, but then it just goes on forever type thing. So that seems to be just the kind of the MO, I guess, of the Avalanches. They are just slow to start, and either they have to play catch up
that out by playoff time,
or it's something in the first period where not very often do we get to have multiple goals, it seems.
Except last night when McKinnon came out, and it's like he's got our backs, like he's taking care of our anxiety, and he's like, "Here, let me just get this one real quick."
He just had to get his point streak continued, and then the rest, we'll talk about that. Anyway, so let's move on to the Pittsburgh game. This one, Brit.
Holy hallelujah, man.
Here's my question. Which comeback is more impressive? This one where you're down 4-0 against the Penguins and you finally get a goal.
What, 96 for a 4-goal comeback?
Something around there. I can't remember, but it was a while.
Basically forever.
But it wasn't until about 4 minutes left in the second period that Sean Walker got the party started for us.
Yeah. So is Sean Walker proving to be 877 goals now? Like, is he taking over that Mr.
7 goals now?
Yeah.
Oh my god, I've never heard that.
Is the
I like that one. I'm going to use that from now on.
Walker is who we call when we need goals now. Because all of his goals have been clutch. I know.
That's so impressive. Did you just come up with that?
No, that's what JT Comfer is. JT Comfer.
Oh my gosh.
Goals now. Like Mac and I have been calling that forever because he was always like Mr. Clutch.
JT Comfer.
And I think that is now Walker. I don't know how you fit that in, but Mr. Walker, 877 goals now. And that's twice now that he has scored very seriously.
What's Sean Walker's middle name? It would have to be called Sean Blank Walker.
I don't know, but that's what, I don't know if you ever listened to McGahee, but like he'll randomly say Kale. I think it's like Kale Samuel Makar or something like that, and he says it, and
he just drops middle names when he's
it's such a dad move that I'm like, ooh, it's so spicy. I love it.
Okay, so back to my original question.
Yeah, sorry, but Walker.
No, you're good. So which comeback was more impressive? This one against Pittsburgh where you're down 4-0 and you finally get a goal with 4 minutes left, or the Vancouver game that was just a couple of weeks ago where you're down 3 and you get one with like a second left in the second period? Which one would you say is more impressive?
In normal people's headspace, I think that the Vancouver is the more compelling one. But to me, this one will go down as important because I think maybe this game is the game where Crosby's like, I want to be a part of that. I'm done being part of this. So this will maybe be. This is one of those times.
I feel like I kind of lobbed that one to you, didn't I?
Yeah, Crosby's going to be like, that was the moment that I decided it's definitely time for me to join my buddy Mac there, especially when you've got Mac coming out there.
I will be an Avalanche, said Sidney Crosby.
Yep, this game. But in all like real hockey appreciativeness, I mean, you shouldn't be able to come back on Vancouver like that. They've been supposedly not on my mind's radar, but they've been one of the bigger powerhouses of the powerhouse that is the West. The East is just like a bunch of dudes like begging to not take the playoff spot, and out West, we're going to be out here wrecking each other to get through the playoffs tonight. That Vancouver game was truly so impressive. And I don't know what the Penguins are doing. I feel like that was like their final, like give, you know what I mean? Like they're just, it's, I don't know. After they traded Gensel, like they're just really down and out. And I think tonight was like
been quite different. Yeah.
Yeah. So tonight was kind of the last push, and there's like personal investment for them to beat us. And I think after this, they're probably going to fade away into the, I mean, I think
it's quite possible. Either that or a severe retooling to try to salvage stuff, but that's not easy to do.
Trading and what's his face? Who's not Crosby? Their other Chris Letang. He has been basically, he looks lost since Gensel left. I mean, I love the Penguins, and so I pay attention to them pretty well, but you would think that they traded his dad. Like, it's just weird. They're just like a shell of themselves since Gensel is gone. And I don't know if you watched the Gensel tribute video when he was back. Oh my God. You want to cry.
Family was there, wasn't he? Weren't they?
Oh God. And then
I'm pretty sure. Oh, it was
videos. Did you see the Kuznetsov returning to Washington tribute video? There's been some real.
I saw both of them. They're tearjerkers, man. It almost feels like they make them do it on purpose, but it's like it wasn't your choice to get traded.
I know.
You know?
You almost gotta feel like they're just doing it to like get them off their game. But yeah, the Penguins are
potentially, yeah.
They are a shell of their former selves. So I think the Vancouver one, long story long, the Vancouver game was far more impressive, but this one was a little more heartfelt and just good God, 4-0. And like, it's just crazy. You're not supposed to, judging by the length of time in between the occurrence, it's really insane.
Yeah. And I think I'll agree with you on that one, because if you think about it, you're down 4-0, you score your first goal with 4 minutes left, but then you score your second goal with about 30 seconds left in that period. So ultimately you accomplished the same thing, being down 2 going into the third, right? Yeah. So granted, coming back 4-0 is much more difficult. So Pittsburgh does have that. The Pittsburgh game has that for them. But given who the Canucks were versus who the Penguins were when they were just trying to kick butt and leave just to make people mad, basically, you know, they both, like I said, they're both outrageously impressive. Yeah. But I would probably agree with you and say Vancouver just for who. That
Puljujärvi goal. Like, it seems like that's happened to us a couple times this year where we've gotten caught with the box. I hate those goals so freaking much, unless it's my own team, obviously. But I really, it feels like we've had that 2 or 3 times where we've gotten a little bit owned on the penalty box exit. So I would love to never see that again. Especially because those usually go down as like 5-on-5. They're 5-on-5 goals. So it messes with it makes the other people look like they have more 5-on-5 goals when really it's just not like a 5. You know what I mean? It's not a 5-on-5 goal.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I hate those goals a ton.
Yes.
And
So
I didn't
in
know
this
that Puljujarvi
game,
actually scored goals still. So until that, or that he was
yeah,
alive.
I forgot he was on Pittsburgh ultimately
Yeah.
until that game. I'm
Same with like
nothing
Lars
against him,
Eller.
but just yeah, and
Weird.
it was like, oh hey, Lars, buddy,
Yeah.
how are you?
Nice to see you're still doing stuff and not doing
Yeah,
stuff.
there you go. So in this game, though, I will say I was impressed with Trenin and Duhaime's play. Trenin obviously gets credited with a goal off of a Duhaime shot, which I thought was actually
Brendan
Duhaime's
just
goal.
can't stop, won't stop. That's what it was really confusing because it was
I
actually
could have
correct
swore it didn't.
NHL. At
I
first, it
could have
went
swore
in.
it didn't hit Trenin, but after replay, I was like, I guess, but it was pretty hard.
Yeah.
It was difficult for me to see that one off of Trenin,
No,
but they were
McGay
both right there,
said he said Duhaime, and then it was put out on NHL as
that it was
Duhaime, and
Trenin.
then it was later corrected to Trenin. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
confused about it.
But either way, like I said, it's great to see both
Regardless,
of them,
either one of them. Yeah.
get their first goal. In this case,
Yeah.
Trenin, but Duhaime's
Especially when
he's
Trenin
gonna
works
have
so
them
damn hard all game, every
exactly.
game.
I
He is.
think both of them, regardless, are fantastic in their own
Yeah.
right. They've all slotted in super great, but in this particular game, this became for me Jonathan Drouin's defining Avalanche moment, in
It's
my opinion.
it's honestly
Um,
like I feel like just like the mother just like watch, you know what I mean? Like it's such a
he
it's so
grows up
far
so
from just like
fast.
a player, but it's just like watching him do exactly like top best case scenario what we had hoped for him, like could genuinely make me cry. Like you see a guy who is at the lowest of lows just 2 years ago, and oh my God, he is just put him anywhere with anyone, anytime. He'll
Yeah,
play any time of day. I mean, he excelled in the Pittsburgh game, which is we suck butt at games that early, especially that early. Like we're not
oh
even
yeah.
doing the 2 o'clock games. So like
We haven't even woken up yet.
I am so happy that just on a human level, you got to think about where this guy was mentally, like about to just give up on the NHL altogether to where he is right now, just like rocking the world with his best friend, like looking at a Stanley Cup run. It makes me really, really happy on a human level because he owned
It
that game.
really does.
He absolutely owned that game. And to see him put that last one away,
The
oh,
overtime winner,
could
man.
not
I
ask for
watched
ending.
I watched that highlight. I don't know how many times, specifically with the Connor McGahey radio call.
Oh my God, because
But
he never takes that shot. He
I
never
have
takes
never seen that type of an initiative from him where, 50 some odd seconds into overtime, he takes a pass just right before they're going into their own zone and he says, "Allow me."
Yeah,
And you just it's like
watch him
watching
overpass it.
it's just like watching oh my gosh, what was the analogy I was going to say, but I can't. Well, anyways, it was amazing is what ultimately because it looked like a Nathan McKinnon move.
Yeah, like the
Because
baby
he's
bird just
screaming
jumped
down
off
the
the
right
ledge.
side,
It's
cuts in front of the net, holds, hesitates his shots, Nedeljkovic bite, and
yeah,
but as soon as I saw that happen, I was like, oh my gosh, and boom,
yeah.
back of the net.
Like, don't pass that, man. Don't pass that.
It was amazing.
It
Like
was so. It was like a confidence, like self-confidence and just assertiveness that we have never seen from him, and it was so beautiful. I'm so excited for him, and also I'm so happy for us. We're not even paying this dude $1 million to come out. He's gonna come out with what at this rate? Like, could he hit like 60 points? I mean, he's going for at least 50, right?
Let's see. What's he at? That was his 14th goal, which you think is low, but all things considered, that's a huge
If you took away
upgrade.
the first 10 games, like his point pace, he was stumbling.
He's at 46 points on
Dude,
the season. He'll hit 50, no
and
problem.
what did I say? Like 60 would be like womp womp womp, like the best, best. And like 40 would be awesome. But like if we can get 20 out of him, can you even ask for 20 points out of an $865,000 player? Like, can you even ask for 20? Or is that just like, please be here and don't, you know?
Well, I mean, and we'll talk about kind of the pricing bit in a second, but you look at like the last stats that he had in his seasons, Like if I go to his stats, let me get that up real fast. He had last year, this was just last year in Montreal, 58 games played, so not a whole season. So we'll keep that in mind.
Did you even know he existed?
2 goals, 27 assists.
2 goals.
That's it.
He is truly like, I mean, I would consider him part of our core at this point. I mean, Bednar clearly trusts him. Like,
oh yeah,
deeply trusts him. And like I've said a million times, it is not easy to be on that man's trust list. And this Penguins game, like back to the Penguins game, he has turned it up. Is it since the All-Star break, do you suppose, that he's really found a next level? And it's confidence. It all
I would assume, yeah.
He has been
that time frame matches. Yeah. And so because he's right now
games, he is what are his stats in like the last 5 or 6 games? I think he's over a point per game.
I bet I could tell you. Last 5, he had 3 points, then 2, then 2, then 1, and then I don't see anything after that. But still, okay, here we go. 3, 2, 2, 1, and then 0. But still, I mean, you'll have those. But
we would have never anticipated to expect him on the point sheet every night. And he seems to have truly found another level within the last 2 weeks. Does it feel like his confidence? And
easily.
I'm kind of curious if like having Middlestat, Duhaime, like having this little extra bit of backup so he doesn't feel so relied on, you know what I mean? Like if he makes a mistake that he's screwed. I just think that this team is just gelling so good and they're all super confident in each other. They're able to play freely.
Yeah. I mean 5th highest scorer on the team.
So badass.
That's where he's at right now, which is, I mean, obviously
of ultra superstars. Like truly.
Exactly, right? And like I said, we'll talk about a particular, you know, what this means for Drouin in a second, but ultimately this was his marquee game that he kind of just showed what he was capable of back in his younger days. And I think, like I said, I really think that McKinnon being on the team and recruiting him and just the Avalanche kind of ecosystem that exists out there really developed him. It's kind of almost like a Nichushkin 2.0 type of thing where he is now all of a sudden one of your current Mount Rushmore guys almost, right? Where it's like you might as well carve his face on the mountain because he's that important.
Would be a problem, a big problem.
Yeah. And so ultimately, like just that Drouin goal immediately said, we have to keep him for a while. Right. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that one after the Canadiens game. So let's quickly go over the Canadiens game before we talk about Jonathan Drouin again. You lose this game 2-1. Montreal owns the season sweep on you, believe it or not.
Yeah, WTF. When I heard that, I was like, ugh, every game against them has just kind of sucked.
Every goal was in the first period, and no scoring happened after that. But here's the thing. The Avalanche didn't play terribly. It was a solid effort. Like, it was weird.
They do, though. The Canadians are just so dumb. They're so dumb because the Avs didn't play great, but they didn't really play that bad. I mean, it wasn't like a lose to the most humdrum bottom of the barrel team in the league.
Yeah.
Perpetually. But yeah, they just do that though. They've also, I think if I heard right, it was either the Vancouver or the Jets. They also swept them. They beat Vegas.
It's just weird. Yeah. So the good news about this
played out of his mind. Out of his mind.
Montreal Bull. Yeah. So the good news out of this game, though, is that Nathan McKinnon keeps the home point streak alive.
What?
Still scoring in every single home game.
So awesome.
But
when he scored, I was like, oh my God, dude, thank you. I can just go to bed.
Because and then in this particular game, Justus Andernen was in net, which we will talk about him as well in a later segment. But about 10 seconds after Nathan McKinnon scores, which was about 45 seconds in, here comes Nick Suzuki screaming up the right side. And that was the only one where I looked at Justus Andernen and his positioning, and I was like, that didn't seem right. He has like one knee down, and it was just so that one I'm gonna say that one was on, like, that one Andernen should have stopped. But then the Armia goal, it's like, what can you do?
That one was just like, ugh. Both of them, just kind of like you'll take it or leave it. But
exactly,
but
how
lame that game was that all the scoring except for one poopy little dribble in like occurred in the first 45 seconds of the game. Like,
I know, right? It's just, and that's the thing is, even after Armia scored, you're like, well, naturally we'll just tie up the game, because the way the Avalanche held the offensive zone, you're like, surely they're going to score, because they were working that place like crazy.
I felt like the Avs were totally in it for the Penguins game. Like the second we scored the first one, I was like, we're gonna come back. But for some reason, the Canadiens game, I was just like, this game is like so weird and yucky that
it just had a strange feel to it. And even though Motem Bold was
a very fast game,
it was a very quick game. And ultimately, though, my kind of initial thought was, even though Motem Bold played very well, which I'm not discrediting his effort. He played really, really well.
He got
the Avalanche hit the iron about 7,000 times.
Missed some wide open nets.
There were some wide open nets that like Rantanen I saw missed. I think Middlestat had one that he missed.
That Middlestat one, he's gonna lose sleep on that for a couple nights.
Exactly. There were a couple where I'm like, those should have been goals. Like if he was on his game that night, we're up like 4-1 at this point, 4-2.
It's hard to know whether we're getting goalied and or we're just missing some
just rough luck. Yeah. Well, and the other thing is the Avs did you see how many shot attempts they had total?
Wasn't it like a freaking lot?
It was an outrageous amount of shots.
When I saw that Montemo only stopped 27, I was like, that felt like a lot more. But
and that's just it was this.
It felt like
overall. There were, oh gosh, I can't remember how many. Like there were an additional 20 block shots from the Habs, but there were still another like 40 that were taken. Like it was like 80 some. I swear it was like an outrageously high number. But the thing was, if it wasn't
a shot off his ankle as he's like bent over with his butt in the air, scared the crap out of him. He was gonna break his ankle.
But if it wasn't for like, those things where it rings off the iron, Motem Bold has a great blocker punch away,
At one point,
the lanes just closed.
3 more goals, it felt like.
Exactly. Like it just felt like we had plenty of opportunities, but for one reason or another, they just
But they were moving quick. A lot of teams don't move with us the way that teams did. So definitely
and that's what I was noticing. And those 20 block shots that just like what you said, that's kind of a tribute to that, is even though they found shooting lanes and stuff, one way or another, that lane just closes a lot faster with that team, which is so weird.
Montreal should be better than they are, because they are not. Their record is bad.
Mm-hmm. Bad. Exactly. So it's just one of those where you're like, okay, and you kind of just move on to the next one. So home or your winning streak is gone. Nate's streak is still alive, so that's the important stuff.
I have
but just one of those where you're just
with the streak. Like, how do you feel about it? Like at this point, it's
I get more nervous every game.
I thought that the Penguins game, that was going to be the game for it too, but now it's
I thought for sure too.
Usually now that he's tied it, I think I would be okay with just like losing altogether. But it's like, oh my God, we're here already. Like, no, let's just.
I know, it's like, you might as well go for it. But
it's got to be so stressful for him every game.
Exactly. I think it's just one, and he even knows. I know he knows it. Oh, right. But it's not going to be easy in the upcoming week. And like I said, that'll be our last segment that we'll talk about. So switching gears then, let's go back then and talk about Jonathan Drouin first. Given that recent play, so kind of carrying from that conversation, Britt, that you brought up, since the middle of the season or whatever. Well, let's just start actually from the very beginning. Since the beginning of the season, he has played wonderfully, and we talked about, we just sang his praises for about 5-10 minutes. The discussion now becomes: has Jonathan Drouin played his way out of Colorado, or priced himself out, whichever way you want to look at it?
I wish we would have signed him the second we saw like good glimpses, even like before Christmas. I think we've like truly seen him propel since after the All-Star, and then like really, really ramp it up in the last 2 to 3 weeks, I wish we would have signed him like in the fall and just been like, you know what,
Mhm.
it's at least gonna work decent. It's worth signing him for 2x4 or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's weird too, especially with like the fall off of Wood and Colton hasn't been like they've kind of both been up and down. I wonder if we will prioritize Drouin a little bit more, but I am going to hold out hope that he's got a 2-year-old, he's got a wife, a young family that they just moved. I'm
Yeah.
going to hold on to hope that we're gonna give him as much as we can that's comfortable, maybe a little bit more than we would normally feel comfortable with, but he'll take a very big discount to stay because at this point it feels like there's no guarantee that he can play like this anywhere else because of
Exactly.
all the different variables, putting him in the right mental space to play this well. And other teams might not be willing to pay him what he's technically worth, like points wise, simply
Mhm.
because of his struggles in the past. You know what I mean? So I'll be
Yeah.
curious to see his market value. I think will be affected a little bit by his past struggles, but I think that he knows that he might not ever be able to get to where he is again without the people and the team that he's surrounded by in Colorado. So I'm gonna say no.
Exactly.
I think he's gonna
Yeah.
stay because he knows that I just love
I
to buy a Durant jersey.
I agree with you. And that's been a discussion. Like I listened to the DNVR folks, and they
Yeah.
seem to be pretty impressed that he has. And again, there is that argument. It can happen, and I
Yeah.
totally can see how.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
I just
I
think
wouldn't be
that
upset if he did leave. And I'll put that out there. I understand it. But he made good money prior to here.
he did, right? And that's kind of the thing is if he does, and I can confidently assume that he likes it here.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
And he wants to stay here, right? But it's going to be the question of what can they agree on, both in term and in dollar amount. That's what it's going to be because your priority after Middlestat, I'll say, is Jonathan Drouin. If
right.
not, it is Jonathan Drouin,
But
then
with the
Middlestat,
cap
right?
crunch,
Like they're
it might be almost embarrassing, what we're able to offer him, but it almost
uh-huh,
might still be worth it for him. I don't think that it's going to
exactly.
be met with like a snotty take it or leave it, but they might just have to say this is all we can do, and he might just say, you know what, I'll take it. You know what I mean? I don't think that there'll
Yeah,
be, and if he leaves, I won't be upset with him either. If we can only offer him $1 million and you've got somebody offering him 6, I mean, you can't blame.
exactly. And that's the thing is you look at all the other UFAs that the Avalanche have,
Don't we?
Caleb Johnson, Jack Jones, Sean Walker, Parisi, who won't be there. So there's going to be an extra almost million.
I really want us to
Kiviranta,
watch Parise staying another year. I just
I would
love it.
love that too. Not, let's be real.
He's
But
been
like
so good.
Yakov, Duhaime, Cogliano, they're all UFA. We have a lot of UFAs this year. So it could be one
Especially
of those
in
where
the
you
top.
offer Drouin, you offer him a 2x3 or something around
I
that age.
Yeah,
But
I would, yeah.
and
And maybe it's
because
the
that's
length of contract that would be what we do to keep him. And if that ages well, even if we did a 2x4, and
sure.
every contract that we sign now that's on the little bit lower end is going to age very gracefully as the cap will be going up soon. I mean, heck,
Hmm.
McKinnon's contract isn't even going to be that high by comparison by the time all the core 4 from Toronto gets through.
I
I mean,
know, right?
double digits
And
is not
one thing to keep in
weird.
mind is that
Right.
there is that shot of the return of Gabe Landeskog, which is going to throw an additional 7 into the
Gonna be
pool,
gnarly.
right?
Where do you even, I mean,
Oh
it could
boy, I
physically push Drouin out of the lineup, just existence, like roster
and that's the tough part. It's like it could be that
because I
because
don't think
Middlestat being
Durant has to do
restricted,
well.
it could be you either sign Middlestat and Drouin
They're
and
not
go
getting
find
rid of.
anything else you could find, but
You suppose that if we go through a cup and we make it deep in either conference finals, whatever, Cogliano, do you suppose there's any chance that Cogliano retires? Because Cogliano
I
and
do
Johnson
think,
are both. It's like, should they retire and not have a rough end to their careers, or
yeah.
one?
I think we have seen the final days, or will be seeing the final days of Cogliano, Parisi, and Jack Johnson. So right there alone, that's about what, almost $3 million. So you could hand that off to Drouin and say, "Stay, please." You know,
that is 3 important people. It just sucks because I would like Jack Johnson to retire this year. I don't want him to leave on a sour note. And with this slowdown that we've seen this year from the Cup run, I think that it's definitely next year is not going to be pretty. And I do worry about Cogs too. Yeah. I don't think that they'll let Cogs trade somewhere else. I think that he would just retire before.
I think so. And that's the thing is, or maybe ultimately they just let him walk and say, it's free agency. It could be your last year. Yeah. If you want to stay, great, but we need to get younger at this point, Nothing against them. That's just kind of how age works, But as far as Drouin is concerned, my final answer is I believe the Avalanche will do everything in their power to make him stay. Mm-hmm. And I think he'll choose to stay because kind of almost like a Nichushkin type thing where he's grateful for the revitalization of his career and he likes the team. And so he might do something like a 2x3, 3x3, maybe, if I were to throw out a guess right now, but I think ultimately he will stay.
Yeah, I hope so.
But switching gears again to the next topic, speaking of retirements, let's talk about goalies for a second. A couple pieces of news of goalies for the Avalanche came through this week. And the first one comes by the name of Pavel Francouz, where the general consensus is that I think he had a setback or just the rehab wasn't going as well as they thought for his surgeries.
It sounded like he had considered trying to ramp up and come back and something was wrong. And they said that essentially at this point, he's not even looking to ramp up for the following season or the playoffs, which when you think about how his role in the Stanley Cup run, it's sad, man. It's really sad. And it's even more unfortunate that truly he was probably slated to be our starting goaltender after Grubauer, but
he was right there. But that's just, that's kind of the way things fall apart is sometimes injuries just plague you and you just can't get over it. So, and I think we even had this discussion probably November?
Yeah,
mid-November, somewhere around there, where
actually come back. I don't know.
Yeah, but then when they said he's out for the season and whatnot, we both, at least I did, and I think you did to some extent as well, where you just said this is probably the last we're ever going to see of Pavel Francouz.
Especially to have such an incredible goaltender on such a, what are we paying him? $2 million. Granted, we've only seen for half of that in both 2-year contracts that we've signed him on, but when he's been around, man. Thank God he was there for the Cup run the first time. So
exactly. Yep. So again, it's one of those where you're just like, it makes you sad because he was a very important part of that Cup run, played half of that playoffs, half in the playoffs, I should say.
He's just a soothing soul of a personality. Like, he's just a wonderful human.
Yeah, just one of those toxic, but in the good way type things where you're just, it's infectious,
With his nice hair can fly.
Exactly. So, I think ultimately the news comes out that he's going to retire from professional hockey, but that's the thing is he has to kind of focus on the long term. And if that's the best solution to have a happier, healthier life, then that's the sacrifice that has to be made.
To walk without a cane.
Exactly. Yeah.
He's got to think about him.
So that's kind of the news coming from the who was the backup goaltender, but now we have a new one. You see, this week. The Avalanche announced that Justus Annunen has signed a 2-year extension for a grand total of $833K average.
Yeah.
I'm fine with this.
A one. Yeah, so basically
contract.
You're it. And your last year lines up with Georgiev's last. So, I mean,
he actually gets one more.
Yeah, that's he's gonna get a chance to take the starting spot, is like what I'm getting at. This is gonna be a 1-year 1B, or it can be a 1A 1A, or Sorry, did you just hear my dog concuss himself on the
I did not.
my light's having a seizure.
I know, it's like switching colors too. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, he just wailed his head under my desk. He may have just lost a couple brain cells.
There you
But
go.
this is us telling him, like, you're it, dude. We're done. You're not a Colorado Eagles goaltender that we bring up sometimes to, like, finish a game or whatever. We are putting our eggs in his basket for not that much money. It's pretty cool.
Which is going to be super helpful with that cap that's happening. So it's a very team-friendly deal. Like, that's for sure. And you even look at Annanen's play, who even played in Montreal. And like I said, apart from that first one that he let by, he played really well.
It certainly wasn't a game to blame on him.
Exactly, right? But you look at the last, I think it's been, 3 weeks now? Something around that. It's been 2-1. 2-1. Georgiev plays 2. Annanen plays 1. Georgiev plays 2. Annanen plays 1.
Georgiev play better. The rest is doing him well.
Just a little rest.
The games that he's letting 4 goals in, I know that I'm a goalie sympathizer, but he has truly just had some stupid luck this year. Like, absolutely stupid luck. It's ridiculous.
Good save.
Yeah.
But no, and that's the thing is, I think now that they've kind of defined what looks to be Annanen as the backup, he kind of has more time to focus on the craft of his game instead of having to constantly, front load all these minutes and games on top of him. He can now kind of just look into the more he can look into the more kind of important games. And even if you look at the schedule coming up, it's probably going to follow that same trend. 2 games for Georgiev these upcoming 2, and then 1 for Annanen, and I think that'll probably occur another 3 times.
What's nice though is at this point, I wouldn't even be like shocked or angry if they decided to put Annanen in against the Rangers, or you know what I mean. At this point, I feel like it's all pretty fair game.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So ultimately, based off of his recent play, I mean, those 2 shutouts definitely helped against Chicago, but he has settled into this role actually rather quickly, I will say. But again, it's like you've gotten him now as your backup. He's going to get more defined, get more cultivated, stuff like that. I'm very excited to see this new transition that he now has as the primary backup for the Avalanche. So ultimately, congratulations to Eustace. He totally deserves it. And I'm at a point where, saying that doesn't scare me, because
that's what I definitely
like last year. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I agree. It's been hard to like fully buy into like this is the dude, mostly because of how Bednar has kind of treated it. They've never really like actually like getting Prosvetov, which we might see him a little bit this year yet too. He's still killing it, isn't he? So but the way that they've treated it, acquiring Prosvetov kind of made us feel like they didn't fully trust him yet. But now like this signing is them saying like, you're our dude, and Prosvetov is the Eagles dude. So it's good to see them invest in him.
It is. So again, I'm excited to see what he has in store for the next few games that he plays next season. I mean, I think it's going to be super, super great because he's got obviously things that he needs to work on, but ultimately it's at a point where watching him and he's in net, I'm not concerned with we got to make sure he doesn't make any mistakes, right? It's now just Annanen's in, great. And that's kind of where it ends. So ultimately, good news for us. Like I said, team-friendly deal, but looks like we got ourselves a backup goaltender. So okay, one last little piece of news, and then we'll get into the upcoming schedule. But this week marked the 27th anniversary since the famous Colorado Avalanche fight between the Detroit Red Wings and the Avalanche there in Detroit. And Brit, a lot has changed since. The rivalry no longer really exists, unfortunately, given that Detroit has switched conferences and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
But, at the same time, you think about that game of hockey back in that type of day. And obviously I was a baby when it happened, right? But I still go back and watch Unrivaled. I believe, was that the name of the show? I think it was Unrivaled.
I think,
but was
Mac and I were just watching something. I think that's what it's called.
I'm pretty sure. Let's see. Yeah, Unrivaled. Okay. But it brings back a lot of those memories where I've gone back and rewatched that game and the kind of games that followed up to that point, and I'm like, man,
the fact that they just casually nicknamed it Bloody Wednesday.
Bloody Wednesday. What was it? Fight Night at Joe's was another one that they called it.
Yep. And Brawl in Hockey Town.
Brawl in Hockey Town. Like it to me, I feel like that really put the Avalanche on the map, but hockey altogether on a grander scale, if you will.
Yeah.
Just because back then, like, hockey, it just felt like it was pure unbridled hatred. And then they threw some goals in between, like it was hard hitting. Isn't
it crazy?
It was a very different game.
11 goals scored in this game, and like you can't even think of who scored one. Like the scoring is so relevant. It's not even.
I know, because the storyline there was the malice, and the fighting, and just the blood, and Patrick Raw fighting. It just stuff you will never probably ever see again unless everyone wants to get suspended for I don't know how many games.
Jail. I think we're looking at jail time.
Yeah, we're looking at jail time at this point. But I just reflect on it to see just how different the game of hockey is compared to then. And it's like, boy, you look at that type of game and there are all kinds of penalties that would have happened even before the fighting began.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But anyway, I just wanted to wish the Red Wings a happy anniversary. We haven't forgotten it. We hope you haven't either. It was a fun time, but like I said, now we've both kind of moved on to different rivals and
different paths. We're good and they're not.
Different paths, and
we're busy doing
kind of how it is.
Kind of how it is. Trying to get into the playoffs right now,
that's right.
They're gonna do it.
That's right. Okay, so the last thing we want to talk about really quick is the upcoming schedule for the Avalanche. So this week we're going to talk about the next 4, I believe. Yes, 4 games. And the reason we're doing that,
I might have to refresh this. My whole Google Chrome has frozen, and somehow I've still been able to talk to you for the last 15 minutes without being able to see Google Chrome.
No, your image has been frozen for about the last 10 minutes. I think.
I'm gonna see if
you're still there.
All
right, cool. Try refreshing, and then I'll kind of bring everyone up to speed as to what we're going to be talking about. So, okay, while she's doing that, we're going to talk about the next 4 games: the Rangers, the Predators, the Blue Jackets at the Blue Jackets, and then the Wild at the Wild. The reason we're going to talk about 4 is because we have a very special surprise for next episode. But in order to do that, we wanted to cover the next Thursday's game on this week's episode because, like I said, we have a very special surprise for next week's episode, which I'm excited. Brit and I have planned this for months, and it's finally coming together. You can throw out guesses as to what it's going to be, but ultimately next week you'll see exactly what we're talking about, and it's going to be on a different day, kind of a different time as well, just in order to make things work for this next episode. So this upcoming week, this one's going to be a very important week. Oh, there you are. Yeah, now it's all working. Now it's all working.
It's just black, but I can still see you and hear you. So I figured eventually it has to come back. But no,
it was working just fine. So I thought that too. I was like, eventually it's got to come back, right? But hey, so Rangers game for what is us going to be here in the next few minutes. This one's going to be fun. Not only is it going to be my wife versus me for personal reasons, but these are effectively 2 of your top 3 teams right now, thereabouts, 2 of your top 5.
the Rangers and the Canes are like, they're all that's good in that division. And they're not really getting a whole lot of pushback. So they're just steamrolling. I mean, they're awesome, and it'd be nice to knock them down at a level or two, I think.
It would. This game, however, you look at the history between the Avalanche and Rangers, and it's gone pretty much to overtime or shootouts the last, 4 or 5.
Georgiev and Shesterkin just gotta be like
it's the Georgiev Shesterkin show, all over again. So I
like it. I'm here for it.
It's one of those where it's a playoff feel, especially this late in the season. This is going to have a very big playoff feel. So it's going to be a 1-goal game, whether it's 2-3 or 2-1 or.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be one of those, like, just biting your nails until the very end. Or somebody's just going to kick somebody's butt, and it's not going to be any fun. Because the Avs don't really know how to do anything in between that, it feels like.
Yeah. So the Rangers won the first one in, was it over? No, shootouts, overtime.
Was it overtime?
One of those two. I think it was overtime for sure, but I couldn't remember if it went to shootouts or not. In fact, it was overtime.
Okay.
Last month, or February. Yeah, that is last month, technically. It went to overtime. You lose that game 2-1. Mm-hmm. So I feel like it's going to be honestly pretty similar to that. And literally
overtime with them every single time.
Exactly. And that's kind of why I'm like, I feel like it's going to be, this one's going to go to overtime. As much as I want them to just blow the doors off of them.
Prone to overtime. I don't remember, at least like just feeling like it doesn't feel like we've gone into overtime as much as we have this year ever. So I don't know.
Well, you look at the last, I think in the last 7 or 8 games, we went to overtime 4 of them. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I don't remember going at that pace.
Yeah.
So of all teams, this team is the team that we're definitely going.
Exactly. So the big thing I'm going to say, and the key to this game is going to be match energy, because New York and I watch them with Allie all the time. They start
the game when the game starts.
They start the game when the game starts. Yeah. And now, obviously, Allie, she can give you everything that they don't do good. But from what I see, they never quit. The whole no quit New York. It's true. They don't give up and roll over.
I love his breakout. As much as I don't like them, he is one of those dudes that, like, I want to see something good for him, because they had all but just like given up on him. Not even 2 years ago? Like, they were just ready to buy him out. So it's pretty cool. He's on pace for like 80 points this year?
Somewhere around there. Yeah. I mean, and Panarin has eclipsed the 100-point mark, so they can match the Avalanche superstars, even McKinnon, because he'll get a point or 2 or 3 a game, but so can Panarin, so can Zibanejad.
Is this one at home? Or is this one away?
This one's going to be at home at Ball Arena. So, like I said, for those watching,
max streak, it's probably going to be Shesterkin. So
that's maybe right, but for those of you watching, it's here in the next few minutes, right?
Yeah.
But for the time being, that's going to be my thing: is match energy, match star for star, like. If they hit you, you have to hit them back.
Yeah,
right?
or at the very least, go out and set the energy high.
Exactly.
Not letting it go in. Yeah.
So it's going to be a very, I would assume, a very competitive game.
I think so. It's going to be.
But it to me goes to overtime, and then it's dictated by who skates faster.
I agree.
Who's got the fastest skates?
Which
I would assume is Nathan McKinnon, followed by Jonathan Drouin, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
But this is going to be a fun game, because it potentially could be a Stanley Cup final preview.
And this is a game where we might see Georgiev steal one for us. Like,
he seems to perform at his best against his former team. So this will be very fun to see. Okay, moving on then. Saturday, 4 p.m. puck drop at home against Nashville. 4 p.m. Mountain Time. This is not to cast shadow on the Rangers game, but this one I am looking forward to the most, because right now Nashville is the hottest team in the league right now. Right? They have not lost in regulation for like 20 games. somewhere around there.
They sold at the deadline.
It's amazing to see just what a canceled trip to Las Vegas can do to a team to piss them off enough so that they basically pull a Shoresy and never lose again.
Yeah, right? That they were like deprived of meeting Jesus himself. Like, oh, wow.
But yeah, this one.
If they win the cup, you realize they're going to have to personally pay for you two to come put on a show.
No, seriously, they really should. They better celebrate that Stanley Cup by parading it around not only Broadway and Nashville, but in the Sphere in Vegas
They're
too.
Going
right?
to have a personal Sphere for all of Nashville.
That seems to be the turning point where just all of a sudden Nashville cannot lose. It's like no matter how hard they try.
It's so funny that it might be completely irrelevant, but it's just so funny.
Haven't lost in regulation for like the last 2 months almost. Month and a half. They just
don't have that much star power. And they're not beating nobodies. It's not like the Oilers run where they're beating. What was their comeback against the Vegas Golden Knights? Was that last night? They came back. That
was at the time of this recording. Yeah, last night they came back down 3-0.
Yikes!
Against Vegas, which it's just like
they're not.
It's like it was one of those where I think it was Roman Josi and Forsberg effectively put the team on their backs and said, "Hold on."
Good year. People aren't talking about him enough. He's
and that's going to be my key to the game.
Yeah,
is how to douse a white hot flame in the Nashville Predators, because keep in mind, assuming you finish first in the division, which even though a loss and you're down now 2 points to Dallas.
I'd rather have Vegas than them at this point.
Oh, I would too. Like I said, we talked about matchups last week.
Many of them, yeah.
But if it does come to that, I want this game to be the game I go back to say it's possible to beat them, and here's how.
And that's what we've always been able to beat them, but they're weirdies this year, man. I don't know.
They had our number this year. I did.
I would rather play Vegas. I'd rather play Vancouver. I would rather play, honestly, anyone but them. There's something to be said about those maniacs that go on the run at the end of the season. Look at the Panthers last year.
Yeah.
Straight from the wild card spot all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. And
and I'm trying to see. Let's see. So the first game I think we played them, we lost 3-4. The second game,
that's when they kicked our butts, didn't they?
Was that the one
that we were ahead?
Scroll through this,
and they came back on us.
Yeah, they kicked our butts in the second game, 5-1. Third game, I think is this the third game? Did we play them again? No, I'm missing one.
Yeah, because was the one that was it the first one that we were ahead and they came back and then scored with like a minute left or whatever?
Two in the last minute. Yeah, let me see here.
The first one.
Let's see.
Every game against them has been yucky. None of them have been fun.
Yeah, so there's the first one that I'm coming across was November 20th. Lost 3-4. Maybe I missed one here. Nothing in December, January. Gotta be here somewhere. Do we only play them 3 times?
I think it was the first one that they came back on us, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because that was the first real doom feeling game.
Yeah, I only see the 3. Yeah, well, but either way, the point is they've had our number.
Game was we're supposed to redeem ourselves, and then they just came out and beat us clean. Didn't even have to make a comeback.
Yep. So this is going to be one where it's not only is there personal reasons for winning this game, but I am personally invested to see if this becomes our first round matchup. I have to go in knowing it's possible to beat them at their best. Make them
dread having to play us 4 to 7 more times.
Exactly. I mean? And that's the thing. It's we're the,
because they're coming
statistically, we're the better team. But for some reason, just this streak that they're on where they're catching at the right time, that's what worries me, because momentum.
The dangerous thing is
momentum carries, right? It can start, but it carries just as well, right? So that's going to be my key to the game, is just to see. I want to make sure that you can go toe to toe if this does have to go to a 7-game series in round 1.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on then. We do have a little road trip put in, so a 3-game road trip. But we'll only talk about the first 2 games. So the first one goes at Columbus. You get to see them again.
So weird.
Monday, 5 p.m. Mountain Time puck drop. Again at Columbus. This one, again, I feel like it should just be a copy paste of the first time last week, right? You should,
at this point, there's
with the exception of them scoring the first goal in the first 5 minutes. That would be nice if they didn't score any, but
yeah.
This game, I'm okay with either Annunen playing or, no, I'm okay with Annunen playing in this game. But this is one where Columbus just has that odd way of sometimes, kind of like with the Montreal game that we just saw, where they'll just kind of randomly win.
These awful teams randomly beat the best teams in the NHL.
Yep.
So, yeah, you're totally right. We can't just totally dork off with it, because
exactly,
that's when we start looking really stupid.
Yep. It should just be a go in, take care of business, go out, right? And then the next game, the last game we'll talk about today is a week from, at the time you guys watching this, a week from today, so Thursday, 6 p.m. Mountain Time puck drop at Minnesota. This is a team, Brit, that is looking and fighting, clawing, tooth and nail to get into the playoffs, same as St. Louis. They're going to bring their A game. At least that's my expectation.
St. Louis game was way harder than it should have been, but that's what happens when they're still fighting for life.
Exactly. So this is going to be, and Minnesota, even though they have a different look and feel to their team this year, they're still a very physical team. They're not afraid to hit. And they still got plenty of scorers. And at a home game, Minnesota's atmosphere is not easy to play in.
Struggling, man. He is struggling. He got pulled the other night. I think he let 5 goals in. So it'll be curious.
He did. He had a dud of a game. So it's going to be either a prove it moment for the goaltending or for something, but they're going to bring their best, because at this point, you
never know what he could pop off. Like, because I feel like he's going to retire after this year. I feel like that's why he didn't go anywhere.
Maybe.
So he might turn into an absolute psycho, like in a positive way. Yeah,
possible. But either way, those are the 4 games that we're looking forward to this week. Let us know what you guys think. DM us, put in the comments, whatever you feel like doing about your takes on the upcoming games. But like I said, we're doing the Minnesota. We're covering it this week because next week I'm so excited. I didn't tell them what we were doing, but I just said it's going to be a different episode, one that we've been planning for months. And like I said, it needs to get here fast because, oh my gosh, I'm just so excited for it to happen. So, other than that, though, I think that's probably going to take care of everything that I had to bring up this week. Britt, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to talk about.
No, I don't think so. It's kind of like the calm before the storm. Like, we kind of got it figured out. Now we're riding with our lines, riding with our guys, kind of cruise control a little bit before we lose it and go straight into the wild, wild west. That is going to be the first couple rounds of the playoffs.
The really, really wild, wild west, for sure, for sure. Okay, well, thank you once again, everyone, for following us on the Cluster Puck podcast this week. We do enjoy your guys' viewership. If you like what you saw, don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow the MHRT network so you can get notified when shows like the Cluster Puck podcast go live. You can follow them on the various social media platforms to get those notifications. If you want to follow us specifically, you can follow us at Cluster Puck Avs on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads, and at the Cluster Puck podcast on Facebook. With that being said, here's to a continued McKinnon point streak, 4 more wins, and as always, go Avs go.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle.